Hello and welcome to another episode of Literary Gladiators, the show where we discuss and debate literature in all of its forms. If it's written work, it's game. Let's meet the panel.
Hi, I'm Larry.
Hi, I'm Jesse.
And I'm Josh, and today we are going to be going over a dystopian novel. This is a Russian dystopian novel, a pioneering dystopian novel, written by Yevgeny Zamyatin.
I was waiting for somebody to say that name.
Yes.
And
Good job, Josh.
I
guess.
Yeah.
Do you want to hear me pronounce the title?
Sure.
We.
Ah.
He's so good. It's
Yes.
like he's Russian.
The discussion starter I have for this is, We is a dystopian novel that was written and then published in English and Czech in the 1920s before being published in the Soviet Union much later. Which should not be shocking, provided it's a cautionary voice about what the Soviet Union is on the path to becoming. It was the formation of communism, and then Stalin took over in 1924. The path that he was putting the country down was very eerily similar to this. This is far more dystopian.
Goes into the future,
Yeah,
hundreds of years.
It is a future.
And assuming that things continue down that track for many centuries.
We itself is a collection of journal entries submitted by a D503 of one state, who is conducting the creation of Integral. This is a dystopia that thinks as a collective, the nature that cannot be controlled by the state is banished behind the green wall. We has been cited as an inspiration for other dystopian novels, namely Brave New World and 1984. How do you feel this novel stands in its story, structure, and message compared to other dystopian novels?
So can I just say, I feel like it's always very scary how dystopian novels can so easily be transposed onto modern day society. Generally, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I'm seeing some eerie parallels. I saw a lot of it in Brave New World. I think we're seeing a lot of it now. I'm just going to throw out a term: Windows 19.
Windows 19.
You just think about it, and you'll figure it out pretty quickly.
You got it, Larry?
No.
No, I think with dystopian novels, not just, this one, Brave New World, like 1984, you've got, kind of makes you think, are we currently living in dystopian time? Because of how parallel everything kind of seems to be.
Especially the procedure at the end of the piece where they program you to be absolutely compliant. It takes away any kind of free will and thought that you may have. You're almost a human tractor, is the way that they put it.
It starts out as a non-voluntary, elective procedure, medical procedure, and then very quickly, the state runs out of patience for the election part of it, because not everybody wants to. Despite
the fact that they are looking to program people and make them create a country of absolute compliance, does very quickly move out of fruition, and there are people that rebel, which is going to happen. I think it goes to show you that a country or a world of absolute compliance is impossible. The world itself is a being of free will. The world is going to control its own climate. Human actions may have an influence. However, the world is going to make its own decisions based off of everything that's taking place, and even the most diabolically insane leader cannot change that.
When it comes to things like that, you also have to remember every single person's different. So even if compliance were an actual thing, everybody's genetics are different. That's going to take a lot of programming to really, move something forward. Not only that, people have power. And I feel like the world now forgets that, and you can see it a lot in books that remind the people, as long as you're willing to read them, that it reminds you that people have power. A person does not. And it doesn't matter if you're president, dictator, whatever, you are a person, not a people. And people will always outnumber a person. Even that right there, you have enough persons with free will, they become a people, that gets you somewhere.
It's a good way to put it, because a person can manipulate what a people think. They can plant a seed if they gather themselves with enough people. However, people also have the ability to smell a rat or
Think for themselves.
think for themselves, as long as they can think for themselves, they are able to detect if they feel that something is wrong. Make the efforts to.
And that's why, like, even
Right,
nowadays, like, you have so many different media sources, which is confusing, but at the same time wonderful, because if you have that one news source, and you see, what is it, North Korea, I think, has one news source, and that's where everybody gets their news. And you're going to tell me that anything out of their mouths is true? No. They might say, it is raining outside and the sun is shining. You go, okay, yes, okay, it's raining. Like,
But don't you dare challenge it.
Yeah, don't challenge it. So, I mean, right now, you know, I feel like that we do have all this information, even though it's confusing because we don't know what's true, what's fake, what's made up, what's this, what's this, what's this. At least we have access to looking at all of it and determining our own...
Yes.
Like, determining our own thoughts on it.
Unfortunately, a lot of it is very biased and slanted. It's the one you want to look for is the one that's objective, and that's very hard to come by.
It's hard to come by.
Because the market,
It's not real. It's impossible. Nobody's objective. Everybody's got a bias. Everybody's got their own point of view that colors the world in a way that may reflect reality better than others, depending on the person and the worldview. Ultimately, you can't be objective. You know, there's going to be bias involved in everything.
I find that when I'm doing research, the best way to get a clear answer on anything that could be deemed a fact is you read multiple sources from both sides, and whatever matches in all of them is probably what's right.
You can find
If you find one thing that matches, it's like, okay, orange. Orange is right.
But that's free speech too. You remind me of, right? That's the reason why free speech is a value in this country, is that the idea that in the marketplace of ideas you can have a million lies and the truth, and you need the faith to say, well, the truth is going to win against all those lies eventually. So that's why free speech is protected by the Constitution. Because if there's only one message that's allowed, then it's just too easy to lie. And I think that the more that a society or people try to make something true that isn't, you know, then the more control that they're going to need to exercise in order to try to make that happen over everybody's thoughts, what people are allowed to do, what people are allowed to think. Right? You need more control the more away from the truth you are trying to lead people. Because in this society, for example, in this dystopian society, the idea is that basically the individual is completely without value, and everything is about what's good for everybody else. Right? It's all about the collective. It's not a truism. It's not the way things actually are. Because these people want that to be true, they're going to impose whatever control is necessary in order to make that appear to be the case.
What were your thoughts about the way that this story was structured, the characters, and the fact that this was written as journal entries?
So I really enjoyed The Martian, because I felt like the setup was similar. I actually am not against journal entry stories. I feel like it does give you that one point of view. I'm trying to think of how exactly I want to say it. It gives you that one point of view, but I feel like it's a little bit more relatable instead of just having, you know, one character like we talked about American Gods, how we're just following that one character and we're seeing what's happening around him. It's like, no, we're actually in the character's mind. He is relaying it how
he sees it.
Yes. And I feel like that also kind of just gives you a little bit of insight more to the character based on how they're writing, as opposed to just the overall story. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I thought it was a good choice in this case. I liked the character. I thought he was kind of funny. I thought that he was definitely a foil in a lot of ways. You know, with especially of that the woman. What was her? That one woman.
There were two women. There was I-330 and 090. I-330.
Yeah, I-330. Yeah. No, I just thought that it was kind of comedic. This character, I got a kick out of how he was always trying to get things to make sense. You know, and that's the thing too. Is like, because this society's told him that human nature is something that it is not, right? And then even within himself, he's got all these feelings that are coming up that he can't process or understand because of the fact that he's trying to convince himself that he is this thing that he isn't, which is just a cog in a machine kind of thing.
I would say he was dry. I think it was interesting that the thoughts that he was putting out were of a wide variety. He was talking, some of the things were very frivolous, kind of like what you would see in a Robert Walser piece. He would bring upon information that was crucial to the subject at hand. But it seems to me that a lot of these dystopian pieces that are driven by messages, that is the major strength and the forefront of this piece, or of their piece, 1984, Brave New World. Whereas they exchange that for characters that are either dry or flat. They don't really have much of a personality. I think that.
It's his thought processes and everything that he's going through that kind of makes it funny, even though he is a very dry character. Like, I think that this is meant kind of to make fun of people like the main character. I think that the writer is cynical toward this kind of, the state is always right. Like, he must have been seeing this a lot in his own life, and probably felt like he was speaking out against it. Couldn't. So was not a fan of people who were going to be pro-state in the end, trying to rip it.
I mean, D503 is a bit of a mockery to that. I think he knows what's going on, but he's also very. I mean, he's conducting the creation of the ship that they're going to use in order to invade other countries and impose their will on them.
Going back a little bit, I think the character's supposed to be dry because, I mean, take for example his name. He doesn't have a name. He has a number, or I'm sorry, a letter and a number.
And that's what they do with prisoners.
Exactly. And that's what you have is you have this state where people no longer have a name. If you don't have a name, then you're going to, you're not going to feel like a person. So in a way, he's not supposed to have that much personality because he's in a state where he's not allowed to have that much personality. And like you said, it's like he's contributing towards, the state invading.
But he can get himself in a love triangle.
Yes, but there's only so much of the human beings you can control, right?
That would be more the influence on the Brave New World, I think, right? People like the love triangle idea.
In fact,
I think that's lifted right out of there is the idea, right? That everybody belongs to everybody else.
Yep.
I think that We does lend itself well to those that succeeded it, such as Brave New World in 1984. I personally feel that 1984 took it to the next step, and I think that Brave New World took it beyond as far as the genetically modifying people is concerned. But I think that We is good as
It's like that first stepping stone.
Yes.
It's enough of a basis to get everybody else's creative mind rolling and to go.
And the thing about We is that this is a very close account, because Huxley and Orwell are British, and you have Zamyatin, who is Russian. And the Russians, by and far, had to deal with more dystopia than British, and especially Zamyatin next to Huxley and Orwell.
Because he got a front row seat, right? He was very much in.
He was in the show.
He was
not just a front row seat,
right? And I think that the motivations for writing the different stories, like I think Huxley and Orwell were definitely trying to write their pieces as warnings of things, and where this was more like a cathartic, like, man, I don't like these people, I can't stand this kind of thing. It's really more emotional,
more of an account of like what's actually happening as opposed to a warning of what's to come.
And it's more psychological in that everything about his nature is bubbling up, right, and throwing his whole worldview off kilter to the point where he should drop it, right? Like, this is obviously not how people are meant to be. Always he reconvinces himself in the end that one state is right and one state is doing the right thing. So it's got to be very frustrating to have people like that everywhere.
Yeah, I would say that much. Yeah, it's especially frustrating when you are when you believe in free will. That's God is a creator of free will.
Right.
When the people around you are happy to do as they're told, when it's just not without decent reason.
So, just kind of some food for thought. We're not reading anybody else's journals. We're reading his. And I feel like, the same concept can be brought into the world today. Everybody is trying to act the way they feel they're supposed to. Respond to things the way they feel that they're supposed to. Again, just a food for thought. He's thinking all these things and we're seeing everything through his mind and his eyes. How do we know all the other people that are around? are they thinking the same thing and they're just acting? We have this one point of view. We don't have anybody else's thoughts. I mean, again, you can kind of transpose that into modern society. Everybody acts a certain way. You don't know what they're thinking. And, you know, maybe if more people communicated what they were actually thinking, you would have these people come together, rise up, and stop these things from happening.
You make a good point, because I think this is the way that the author sees himself. It would be interesting to see what other people have to say and what they would think of D503. The women in this piece maybe as well. One of them was a very forceful figure that...
330.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's, you know, part of the other side.
She had to go. She ended up being executed.
Tortured. Yeah. Tortured. The one scene that you make me think of when you talk about this is Election Day, right? Where he's like, "Oh, this is the greatest day. I love this day. Ever since I was a little kid, everybody stands up. Nobody says no. It's always unanimous and great." And then he's there, and what happens is, you know, like 1,000 people, you know, says get up. It's like, is that the first time this has happened? Or does it happen every year, but he just, like, forgets it because it doesn't fit to his worldview that everybody's on board with this?
It just kind of, and like I said, again, it makes you wonder if we're currently living in a dystopian society, because you have, you know, all these major movements that if, you know, you have, I don't want to say somebody normal, somebody going about life with like, okay, well, I have to go to work and I have to have my job and I have to get money and I have to pay the bills, and these are the things that I have to do to be a member of society. And then, you know, we see on the news like all these people who are marching down the streets and protest, and we're like, oh, why don't they have a job? You know,
anybody ever listen? Did anybody ever, I would say, watch the movie but listen to Dolly Parton's 9 to 5? Dolly Parton song?
Yeah, that song, sure.
Yeah, when you listen to it carefully, it's very much about conforming to society.
Exactly. That's what I feel like a lot of these characters are like, or not, maybe not a lot of them, but what some of them are doing, and he's trying to conform.
I mean, that's
is too much of a free thinker, and he's like, well, do I want to get in trouble or do I want to just conform?
That's one step in that direction. We don't want to become like the dystopian in We. We have to read these, pick out things that could be happening, pick out things that could happen, and prevent them from happening.
No, you're right. That's what we have to do. You know, what that looks like is going to be different compared to what your situation is and where you are and what you can do and say and what you're free to do, you know. And I think that the more free that you are to act in the world in accordance with what you think is the right thing, then you're still free. You know, and as long as you feel like you can do what you want, also at the same time you're doing so in goodwill, right, and not trying to take advantage of people or break the law or, you know, be bad in any way, then I think you're still, you know, you still got enough free choice to move around in the world. As history goes on, those moments become like, you know, the government's going to either be tightening the grip or relaxing the grip, or depending on how many people are willing to go along. And for a lot of people, it's, you know, not so much, oh, I'm going to conform. It's just the path of least resistance, right? It's like, what's going to cause me the least amount of hassle.
This discussion with Josh the other night. Everybody in the world is more than willing to eat a spoonful of the S word, and how much we're willing to take will depend on how much we currently like our way of living. America, we have
rich.
Yes, and that's the thing.
As a Japanese, so aptly put it.
A lot of people have first world concerns. They're very
we have first world concerns, but
immersed in their
own lives. But we have easy access to water.
Right. There's convenience everywhere.
Yeah, we have easy access to water. We have easy access to shelter. We have easy access to food. You know, maybe not everybody in the country, but most people. And those people, we have to constantly listen to our government, and our government is getting away with a lot of BS that they shouldn't be, but we let them because we're comfortable right now.
Because they keep you fat. And,
they're going to $30,000 parties when they wear a tie that says "tax the rich."
Yeah, exactly. And it's like they're just going to keep giving us that spoonful, and we're going to keep taking it because we're comfortable, and it's better than losing everything, because that's ultimately could possibly be one of the costs of rising against it. So even though we don't necessarily like what they're doing, we're eventually going to reach that point where the people no longer want to eat their spoonful of nonsense, and that's not the word he used, but you know, eventually we're going to reach that point. But until then, as long as the government keeps us happy and comfortable, fat and rich, like you said, you know, we're going to keep taking it.
Not rich,
but, you know, not
set.
everybody does take their
because
no, not everybody does.
Yeah.
God rest
But
his soul. We
most
just
of us do.
lost. We just lost Norm Macdonald, right? And he was a man who never, ever, ever, ever played this celebrity game where you don't talk about this, you don't joke about that. He was always willing, ready, and able to do that. And did it hurt his career? You know, yeah. He probably would have been on Saturday Night Live doing Weekend Update for a long time. But he continued to make jokes about O.J. Simpson, even after he was found not guilty that Saturday. When O.J. was found not guilty, Norm Macdonald, the producers, probably said, well, he's going to stop joking about O.J. now. And he got up there and he said, well, they just legalized murder in California. So that was it. That was the last show he ever did. He never compromised. And even today, or until very recently, you know, he had to deal with Netflix. It didn't matter. He jokes about what he wants to joke about because, you know, political correctness and everything. There's certain things you're not supposed to joke about. He doesn't care. If he thought it was funny, he was going to joke.
And yet he was embraced by both sides and by everybody.
Yeah. Exactly, and that's the thing. It's like you have a few of those exceptions, which is great, but in order for the people to come together to rise against tyranny, they have to come to a point where they're no longer comfortable and everybody can feel that they can do that, where they won't take it anymore, instead of just one person here or there.
Well, yeah.
You need everybody.
We're seeing it now. We see it now. I mean, it's becoming so plain.
Do we have any final thoughts?
I feel like every
we didn't touch
dystopian
upon?
is very...
Yeah, I think that with dystopian pieces, I think what's more thought-provoking is the subject matter that it brings up as opposed to the story itself.
Yes.
I know that even with The Giver is probably one of my favorite, probably my absolute favorite is Fahrenheit 451, which I think that I can dissect that so much all the time and create some kind of diagram out of it. But with The Giver, it's a very interesting concept as far as the story is concerned, but the things that are going on really stick out in the world, in their world. I think this piece does a good job laying down the groundwork, but I think that the stories that succeeded it did better.
Yeah, like I said, it was just kind of like that first stepping stone. It was what got everybody's juices flowing to, you know, take it and run with it. You need a good basis somewhere.
Yeah, like, to me, Brave New World is definitely probably the quintessential dystopian novel for me, because it's such a creepy idea where not only is going to be such a degree of control, but it will be chosen voluntarily by everybody, and everybody will be happy with it. Like, it's a disturbing idea.
To me, I would say Fahrenheit 451 is my favorite. It's based off of concept. I think that as far as something of this tone is concerned, I know The Giver it concentrates on particular aspects. I think that 1984 is probably the one that is the overlying, because not only does it speak about dystopia of what we're on the path to doing, but also the ongoing mechanics of all leadership. The people that are not satisfied with leadership and want to make a difference will take the role of the common person, but then once they get into leadership, they take on the role of the leadership. How would we rate this? 0 to 5 stars, half stars permitted, Larry?
I'm going to go 3.5 stars. I liked it well enough. Toward the end, it kind of gets real hard to follow, so I'm not too big into that part of it so much. But I think it holds up really strong. It's worth looking at too, especially, you know, if you're a fan of dystopian literature, you can really see the roots of where the great works of dystopian fiction were inspired by this. You can definitely see it. So yeah, I'd recommend it. 3.5 stars.
You kind of took the words right out of my mouth. I'm going 3 stars. I don't feel particularly strongly either which way, whether I really, really like it or I really, really dislike it. It's just, like you said, it's that as I've been saying, the stepping stone. It's where everybody, you know, is getting a lot of inspiration from. It's not bad. I don't think it's, you know, anything magnificent. I found it pretty easy to follow. I liked that it was in a journal sort of way, which kind of makes you think, like, okay, how much free will do they have, because he is keeping a journal? And I don't know, I feel like...
Wonder what would happen if someone caught the journal.
Exactly, so...
well, you knew enough to hide it, won't you?
Yeah, but still, so, you know, it's there's also that aspect of it, and it is very thought-provoking, so I'm going to stick with 3 stars.
I'm going to go with 3 stars, too, because I thought that it did a great job laying down groundwork, it did a great job presenting cautionary warnings, but I think that the subject matter in itself was a bit dense and dry. And I think that when it came to being engaging, I think that other works have done better.
Yeah, I think, like, because you definitely get a sense that the guy's kind of losing his mind toward the end, and that's what makes it hard to follow for me, I guess, at the end. I'm not sure exactly what's happening anymore after a certain point. But,
and then when he gets the procedure, the way that it ends, it's just flutters out.
Yeah, it's not as gripping. Right? It's a similar fate with Winston in 1984, but I think Orwell carries that ending.
I think it's I think he capitalizes on it more, where he becomes a conformist
in a much more devastating way with Winston.
Yeah.
This is like so kind of world shattering when that happens to him, and in this it's just kind of matter of fact.
There's that sense that there's a bit more hope
in this.
While they're turning these humans into machines, there is the sense of resistance that they're going to go up against it.
Yeah.
But if they're just uniformly conforming, then that's another story.
Yeah, well, human nature is what it is, right? So
yes,
that's why they call them authoritarians, they call them totalitarians, because that's what they want to redefine what is real. They want to be the authors of reality, and totally, right?
Yes.
So, and you can't. It just can't be done. So there's always going to be freedom, even if it's just in the very quiet recesses of somebody's own mind of saying, I know I have to say yes to you, but you're foolish.
If you're interested in reading, here is my copy. This is written by Yevgeny Zamyatin. I think this is definitely worth checking out if you are looking to immerse yourself into the genre of dystopian literature as a whole. Be sure to join us next time on another episode of Literary Gladiators. For now, keep reading. Hi there, this is Josh, and on the next episode of Literary Gladiators, Dominica, Jesi, and I will be discussing Castle Swimmer Season 1 by Wendy Leanne Martin. If you like what you see on this channel, please support us on our Patreon, for the money that we make on our channel will allow us to provide you, the viewer, with even more great content. Thank you, and for now, keep reading.